Ask you a question. Yes. Who's starting 75 years? This is that. We're gonna move it first. When they show up. There we go. Sound good.
Good afternoon and welcome to Miamisburg Rotary. Today, our greeters are Dan Price and Amy Green. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Amy. Next week, greeters will be Bill and Doug. Today, we were gonged by Josh Lyles. Thank you very much. And Mr. Crosby is going to lead us in prayer.
Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for this food. Thank you for the fellowship and the purpose of Rotary. Guide and protect us. Help us to do your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with and justice for all.
A song that's been going through my head quite a bit lately because of the warring that's going on in the world is Let There Be Peace on Earth. And I know it's a little bit hard to sing, but you do have the words on your table. So let's see what we can do with this one. Let there be peace on earth and love to begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. When love was from so we let me walk in our let peace begin with me. Let this become with every step I take. Let this be my song to take each one in peace eternal. Let peace on and let it begin with me. Now, I went on the Rotary peace groups.
All right, Mr. Doug Talmadge is today's acting secretary. We should have a lot of people on this list. Huh? Yep, let me get you one.
All right, welcome to Miamisburg Rotary on this sunny April 15th. We have no visiting Rotarians, no guests. We have a couple of prospective members. Michelle Collins, prospective member, is Chris Fine. Welcome. And Ted Pink's prospective member is Jill Stoutenborough. Welcome. That's all I have, and their last string is always out at the Miamisburg Rotary.
All right, announcements. While you do that, we did get letters, thank you letters from our allocations. We got a thank you letter from Helping Hands, Helping Others, thanking us for our donation of $1,000. And we also did get a thank you letter from the West Carrollton YMCA for our donation of $1,000. So if you want to read those are up here.
And my announcement is just a reminder that after the regular meeting, we're meeting again, the races group, wrapping up a lot of stuff that's going on. And a reminder that next week we'll be talking, the whole meeting is going to be finalizing and getting ready for the race. And then once we finish down here, we're going to go upstairs. So anyone who's able-bodied enough, or not everything will involve muscle. We're going to get everything set up after the meeting next Wednesday, so it will all be ready for Saturday.
Shred Day is upon us. Tax day is today. Shred Day is Saturday. So if you have any secure documents from 7 years ago or prior, or whatever you want to shred instead of wasting time on your own personal shred, bring it on down. We've got several people signed up. Even if you haven't signed up, come on down to Think Patented. It's usually cold and windy, but we have a great time. Every car that pulls up has a smile on the face because they're getting rid of stuff they don't know how to otherwise get rid of. The Friday before, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 different places that are accepting donations, electronics, appliances, styrofoam, paint, oil, you name it, you pretty much can give it. I've got the list here, so if there's some old junk in the garage you want to get rid of, you have until Friday to get it all gathered up. They go from 10 o'clock until 2, and then ours is 10 a.m. to noon. I warn you, we always have a huge rush at 9:30 in the morning, and as long as the truck's there, we start taking them. Everyone's afraid we're gonna fill up the truck. We came to 2/3 last year, but we're gonna go until we fill up the whole truck. So, if you have volunteered, ideally you'd be there around 9 o'clock, just so we can get set up and make sure that we greet all the people coming in. And we do accept donations.
There is a Miamisburg Rotary Association meeting here tomorrow morning at 7:30. Hope to see you all next week.
Just so you know, if anybody wants to purchase any tickets for the Dick Church Scholarship Fund, I still have raffle tickets available. Also, Bougie Bingo's coming up with Guam Opera House, so please support that.
Just a reminder, we have signed up as a fundraiser to be in charge of the beer tent at Springfest. So on the Club Runner website, you can sign up to volunteer. We are getting paid as the club to do that. And sign up soon so you can get a shirt if you want a volunteer shirt. And then there is a mandatory training for your reporters the week before Springfest. May 15th, 16th, and 17th.
And because some people aren't technical or don't like to go on the website, I do have a physical sign-up sheet with me that already has filled in who has done it, so we can pass this around as well. And then I'll add you online for you. So this will be coming around. Please figure out what time you like, squeeze your name in there, and then we'll make it happen. As long as we need somebody in that slot.
Tonight at 6 o'clock in this room is the annual Farmers Merchant F&M Band Corps shareholder. So a lot of you will be here.
All right. Let's see here. Who wants to answer our fun fact for Rotary today? Jeff Nestor. Excellent. So you actually should know this off the top of your head, since you love to sing so much.
I could make up an answer if you want.
Okay. Well, the question is, who introduced singing to Rotary as a tradition? That is the question.
Okay.
In the meantime, we'll do $50.
All right, happy dollars. Oh, go ahead. No. Go.
I can start this out. So I had to think about it for today, and I just want you to think about what a tick and the Eiffel Tower have in common. They're both parasites. But that's more important because I'm headed to Paris on Friday.
I got one crop dollar, then because Doug's here on April 15th. Yeah. Put Rotary over his shop right now. So thank you very much, Doug, for coming.
I have a happy 20 because I'm wrapping up my 38th tax season, and also my last April 15th. I have a happy $5. I just came back from a week in Hawaii with my wife and my daughter. We got to play golf in Hawaii twice, so it's a good start to the year for me. Yes.
well, Kim isn't here, and he would do this. Since our speaker today, is Eric about ham radio, I will say we have a nice display of ham radio, memorabilia and history at the History Center.
I have two happy dollars today. One is for Lori, one is for Tom. I got a chance to sit down and chat with them and just socialize outside of the road. Actually, really kind of cool. It was a gorgeous day, and we just sort of walked and talked and grabbed a bite of lunch. So, just thankful for new connections within Rotary and all that fun stuff.
I have $10 for Michigan. I've been here a long time and really get a rough time about Michigan, but Michigan won some basketball, big time.
I have $2 that my two beehives made it through the winter.
Three happy dollars, one for Jim DeYoung being here. Number two, you all know my granddaughter, a lot of them, Josie, she got her learner's permit, so be watching on the road. And number three, my friend Tom Cossey got to spend some extra time with a good friend of ours, Lee Hieronymus, so way to go, Tom. That's a sad dollar. Want to hear from me?
Yeah, sure, we'll take the answer. Why not?
Carolyn Kilpatrick. Okay, you can take this.
There you go.
Welcome to Rotary. I'm gonna find myself for not being here this morning. I was on a phone call. And I'm super, did $5 Venmo. Glad to make it safely back from Greece and got to go out to California last week and plant a Joshua tree and didn't die in the desert. So bucket list check. And I should be around until just the end of June. So I'm excited to be at Rotary the next month.
Okay. All right. Well, since Jeff answered the question, they were correct. It's Harry Ruggles, who's actually fifth Rotarian member. So that's the fun fact of the day. Top dog is a 9 of diamonds, $77 is in the pot. Tom, do the honors. $182.
182. You got it, Karen? Not today.
I know
Me?
Garen.
Oh, Neil has it.
Niels, it was supposed to be me.
All right, nine of diamonds.
Come on, Niels.
The rich get richer.
Ace of diamonds.
Ace of them. Very good. All right. Just real quick, I want to piggyback on what Angela said. Since we met, and I also have met with other Rotarians this past week, and I mean, I'm sure there's some of you that may meet on a regular basis because you're part of different organizations and things like that. But I encourage, if you get the chance, you're sitting with somebody, just say, hey, do you want to grab coffee or lunch sometime? Well, hey, I'm going to be down here in Miamisburg and talk. Again, don't know if you know Angela, myself, and Lori, but if the three of us get together, we may have talked a little bit, but we really talked a lot. So we're talkers, so that was interesting that the three of us get together. But I encourage that, just to socialize, and if you happen to talk about Rotary during that time, that's good too. Just let me know if you have any thoughts or ideas about Rotary especially in the upcoming year. Well, today we have one of our own. We have Eric is with us today, and he's going to share a little bit about the Mountain Amateur Radio Association. So thank you very much, Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric Flasher. You may know me from the local Miamisburg Rotary Club, but my radio club knows me as Eric W8KKF. Jim would know that. He was also a licensed ham. Is your license still active? Okay, but he was a ham and a member of the club in years back. So this is a little bit about amateur radio operators, also called ham radio, and our local club, the Mount Amateur Radio Association. So what we pride ourselves are doing is being able to provide emergency communications, because the radios are pretty much infrastructure free. When the power goes down, when the telephone lines go down, you can still talk by radio. We maintain batteries, generators, solar power, bicycle power. We can keep communicating. So it's sort of infrastructureless, and that allows us to communicate to Columbus is one of our main missions in case all hell breaks loose down here. We want to be getting messages to Columbus saying what we need or what resources we have available. We know that like 1974, when the Xenia tornado came through, all of the communications for the police and fire were wiped out, and it was amateur radio operators that were assisting. And then here locally in 86, when we had the phosphorus disaster, the train derailment, we were bringing in police officers from all over the county that didn't know the streets and roads. We assigned a ham radio operators to sit with them and help them navigate and assist them in communicating, because right now the radios were really busy. So that's what we truly enjoy doing. We hope we never have to do it. We practice it all the time. And we have radio stations set up at the two hospitals, Kettering Health Network Miamisburg and Kettering Health Network Washington Township, so that in case of a disaster, we can go there, and we've already got radios and antennas set up for communications. We also really love doing public service. At a minimum, we do the Spring Fest Parade every year, the Rock and Green Tomato Festival, the Miamisburg Triathlon, the Pumpkin Spice Run, the Turkey Trot, and the Holiday Parade. Being one of the parade organizers, I love having ham radio operators there because we stage in multiple areas, and by having ham radio operators, I can communicate back and forth. And when we were broadcasting it, we would always have drops or maybe a switch in position. We could use the radio to communicate with the folks doing the announcing and say, you know, the fire truck stalled out, it's not going to be coming through to drop it out. And if the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts were backward, that way the announcer wasn't say, here come the Boy Scouts and a bunch of lovely girls dancing around. So what we know for like the turkey trot, for example, is that the runners will get a map that looks like this showing them the route. What the amateur radio operators get is a map like this, where we have 23 operators stationed so that no matter where you are when you're running the course, an amateur operator at either end will either be able to see you running behind or running toward. So if you fall, have a medical emergency, especially when it's icy, we had people falling, we can get emergency medical assistance there immediately, communicate with the course staff if anything goes on. Fortunately, we haven't had a whole lot of emergency traffic. About every year we have a lost kid. That's really awkward. And I don't think we had any injuries last year, but we always get sprained ankles and that sort of thing. So we're available to help out with those communications as needed. 26 people is a lot of folks to coordinate on a radio. And that's why we love doing these events, because it's a practice in case of emergency. It's called a controlled net. So if you see something, you just don't grab the mic and say, oh, something's happening over here. You wait, you ask permission to speak, and then you talk, and the person that's in charge of the net controls who is actually doing the talking, so that 15 people aren't trying to talk at one time, because then no one is getting the message communicated. So for us, public service is also practicing for emergency services. Ham radio, you have to be licensed, unlike Citizens Band radio. And down here, I've got kind of a note that if you call me a CB operator, some people take great offense to that as ham radio operator. So best not to call, hey, it's the CB festival in town when they're talking about the hamvention. Don't use the word CB with amateur radio. It's fine for what it is. I won't demean CB radio, but they're relatively unlicensed. They do whatever they want. Ham radio is strictly controlled, both on the international level and national level. Internationally, because radio waves don't understand national borders. We can talk all around the world, so we have to make sure that we're doing it in coordination with all the nations in the world. That's why the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, comes in, and then the FCC is what regulates all of our work. When you get a license, you get a little, they call it a ticket. You get your license that looks like this, has your names, and most importantly, your call letters on it. And that's what we vie for. My call letters actually belong to my dad. I've been a licensed ham for 50 years this year, and I originally was WD8 ATS. So I was 11 years old, couldn't drive, obviously. Mom drove me to the Museum of Natural History, and it was a 30-minute drive from our house. The classes were an hour long and 30 minutes to pick me up. And she's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'd go home and then have to come right back. So she sat in with me and took the class. She got her license. She was WD8 ATP. I think for most of her life, she couldn't have even told you what her call letters were. She just did it because I was there taking the test. And back then you had to learn Morse code, which was a struggle for a lot of people, but in 1986 that was eliminated. You don't. And for I think 45 years of my life, I was mispronouncing it. I was saying Morse code. It's not Morris. It's one word, Morse. M-O-R-S-E. So there's a little stupid trivia for you. 3 different class licenses: technician, advanced, and amateur extra. All radio transmitters in the United States, their license begins with either the letter A, N, K, or W. So if you hear a G3 XRB, you can tell it's from Great Britain. That's Great Britain. That's what the G stands for. And ZL would be somebody in New Zealand. They have different prefixes. All transmitters in the U.S. are ANKW, and when you think about it, you hear this all the time. Name a TV station and give their call letters. What's Channel 7? WHIO starts with a W. On airplanes, you'll see a series of letters, and if the radio on that airplane is licensed in the United States, the letter on that airplane will start on the tail with an A, K, N, or W. Commercial broadcasting stations, traditionally everything east of the Mississippi were W's, west of the Mississippi at K in front of them. Now they've kind of mixed it all up a little bit. Talked about the test. Here's a quiz. So if this is a technician question, what agency regulates and enforces the rules for amateur radio service in the United States? C, I told you it was the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. Easy. A little more challenging when you go for the amateur extra. What devices are commonly used as VHF and US parasitic suppressors on the output terminals of a transistor HF amplifier? Anyone? I guarantee if you look closely, you will get this question right. Look closely. Look closely. When they print the questions, they also tell you the answers. All of the exams, when the FCC publishes them, always include the right answer. So there's no age requirement. We've had 5-year-olds that have memorized the answers. They have no idea the technology they're doing. They just know when it asks this. I'll also tell you, because I analyze this myself, 85% of the time it's the longest answer. Not always. So if you memorize the few exceptions, you can pass it. So there are some hams that don't have the greatest depth of technical knowledge. But every 4 years, they renew the license exams. You need a 75% to pass. So even if you don't know how to do logarithms, you can make a guess on that one and skip on to other things. But there are guidebooks and there's visual things and radio clubs like the Mountain Club that will help you learn the technology to be able to pass the test. So what's the correct answer to this question? Yeah, ferrite beads. You all knew that. The rules also cover rules and safety. We don't want you killing yourself. We're dealing with some high power. You can have 1,000 watts of output, and you don't really want to touch an antenna with 1,000 watts of output. I can tell you from personal experience that 50 watts hurts like crazy. My finger burned on the inside because the guy keyed down a transmitter, and I happened to be holding the antenna, and it's like, ow. And then the next day, it's like, ow. You don't see the wound on the outside, but it's in there. So you learn the safety rules, the technology rules. And again, fortunately, no Morse code anymore. We still use Morse code because it's the easiest way, low power, and it gets through everything. Because even in high static, so we hear, But if you modulate a signal, and modulating just means adding intelligence to a signal, okay? So a modulated signal has intelligence added. If I hear, I've just heard the letter CQ, CQ. Because even though it's static, there was high static and low static, and Morse code is dits and das. By the way, we typically don't call them dots and dashes. And the reason is if you say dot, 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 dash, dash, it's a lot of syllables and words, but when you hear the tone, it's more like da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. So we call them dits and das, and we drop the T and the H when they're all combined together. So a little more. Mound Club was formed at the Mound Laboratories back when Monsanto was managing in 1962. And for several years, it was only Monsanto members. Then they figured out, let's allow the general public, if you're a licensed ham, to join, but you couldn't be president of the organization. So for many years, I was vice president because I wasn't a member of Monsanto. Later on, EG&G took it over, and so the M for Monsanto Amateur Radio Club didn't make any sense more. So they focused more on the Mound of the M, and it became Mound. And then in 2002, 2003, they closed the Mound Labs, but the radio club stayed on, fortunately. The city is very gracious and allows us to use this shack building out at the Mound, right next to the Mound. You've probably seen the thing. It's a really nice facility because we're able to set up radios on the left-hand side of the operating room, and then we have a meeting area training side on the other side. Well, I threw that in purposely because we love radios, kind of like police operators. When we work the 24-hour field day exhibitions, we have food there. And for training, it's always nice to get more people to the club meeting. We've been averaging about 28 to 32 people at an average meeting. We meet once a month on the first Wednesday of the month. And then these radios and the computers are used for logging the contacts. And then the radios, this is typically for worldwide communications. And of course, all over the United States. Antennas are a big thing, and that's one of the nice things about having a permanent shack. You can throw some really large antennas on there. This actually is a vertical antenna back here. We use that for local communications, but this guy up on the tower, that's called a Yagi beam, all right? So I'm going to get into a little technology with you on the Yagi here in just a second. So the boom has a bunch of elements on it, all right? One element is the key element, and it's usually the second to the last from the end, and it's the second longest. It's called the driven element. And you can supply energy to it and have it radiate away. And that's what we want to do. And if you just had that dipole, it radiates in sort of a blob, sort of a sphere around the thing. And you might be able to get 50, 100 miles with that. But it turns out that in front of the driven element, if you add increasingly shorter elements and you can put one reflector, you can take that blob of signal and narrow it and point it, and it becomes a node like this, and you get a significantly greater distance. Now, what you have to do when you have that is have a rotator, because I want to be able to point that node to where I really want to talk. And as you're working a station, let's say you're trying to get New Zealand, you'll hear him, as you're tuning, you'll hear him weakly, very strong, weak, and then it's completely gone. But occasionally, you'll hear him off the back of the beam too, which is a really wild way of communicating. The radios we use, we've got the big expensive one that can run from $300 at a flea market to $6,000 for the absolute top of the line. The rig that I use is it's about $2,000. Lovely radio, enjoy it. The smaller mobile radios, these can be for worldwide communications or for local. And of course, we all have handhelds for the local communications. That's called 2 meters. 2 meters, you can talk, depending on the power, 10 miles, 20 miles, local communications. Miamisburg is tough because you probably know this, but we're in a valley. If you look over at the hill on Old Stony, we're in a valley, and that is not conducive to good radio communications, because if I want to talk to somebody on top of the hill, I got to make sure my signal gets up that hill, and sometimes it's not possible. So what we have figured out to do is, I'm sorry, we'll get back to that, is use repeaters so that we put antennas up in tall places to listen to them. But on the HF side, we sort of have the same thing, an HF radio that might be able to communicate 100, 200 miles on ground wave. Certain frequencies, when they're broadcasting up into the atmosphere, will actually bounce off the ionosphere. The sun is throwing energy at us and it thickens the ionosphere. Our signals can bounce off it and back down to Earth. So you may have heard it called skip or bounce. And you can operate hundreds and thousands of miles on that. And when the signal hits the Earth, it sometimes bounces up again, hits the atmosphere again, and bounces back down. You can operate on the second or even the third bounce when conditions are really good. Our frequencies weren't the best. The commercial operators got the best frequencies, so there are times that some of our bands don't work on the ionosphere. But in the 11-year sun cycle, when it's really hot, throwing a lot of sunspots, a lot more energy is thickening the ionosphere, I can talk on 10 meters with 5 watts, and it is just like I am talking to you here to a guy in New Zealand, in Hawaii, Alaska. It's wonderful for about 2 years. 7 years after that, forget it. You're not working any international contacts, waiting till the next sun spike. 20 meters, you can do a little bit better. So operating the bounce is a really cool thing for us to do. And of course, it's all about antennas. So when we have our PARs, we'll put on antennas for local communications, larger antennas for HF, high frequency, the long distance communications. Some people take it to the crazy extreme. It is a hobby for geeks. Okay, so HF is like AM radio, and you know that WLW, for example, can be heard in Texas. Okay, our 180 meters is very similar to that, except instead of using AM, they figured out you can cut it in half, and it's called single sideband. To the untrained ear, it sounds a little Mickey Mousey because you're not having full audio, and if you're not tuned directly on it, it can get really weird sounding. But once you learn how to tune on it, you can communicate all day long. The local stuff is more like FM radio, and we use frequency modulation to talk, and it sounds much more like I'm talking to you. Less static, all the characteristics of listening to FM radio instead of AM radio, so we have that available. And I started mentioning the repeaters. So if my little handheld only puts out a half watt, I'm not going to communicate for 50 miles. But if, and again, thank you, City of Miamisburg, we put an antenna on top of the water tower on Linden up the hill, we have a very powerful receiver, a very tall antenna, and a very strong transmitter. So it will hear me broadcasting on one frequency, and it hears me, turns around and immediately rebroadcasts on a slightly different frequency at much higher power. And that's how we cover all of Miamisburg, Germantown. Occasionally we can drift down into Middletown and that sort of thing. Just using a small handheld, we're relying on the bigger antenna and the bigger power over there. We have 3 repeaters. One is at the Mound Clubhouse. One is at Kettering Health Miamisburg on top of their building. And then, like I said, the one is on the water tower. Field day is one of the exciting things in the life of amateur radio, probably second only to Hamvention, one way or the other. And this is a day where we unplug from commercial power and let's figure it out, guys. We string our own antennas. We have people come out to the clubhouse, cook food, throw up tents. They're using solar power, battery power. We've got a generator that we fire up, and it's not a contest, although we treat it like a contest. It's not a contest, but we try to work all of the states in the United States in different regions, and then the clubs can acquire points. Mr. Nestor helped us at one point because you also get bonus points for having government officials come to visit your operation. So that's cool. You get bonus points if you put it in the newspaper. So, okay, we'll write an article in the newspaper. But it's a great way. It's a 24-hour exercise in emergency communications. Because let's say the tower fell down with high winds, a tornado came through Miamisburg, God forbid. We know how to string up wires in place of that antenna, and we can still communicate. Okay, and we've got the power sources to do it, and we've got the training to do it. So we love field day. You are all invited to the mound on June 27th and 28th to see us in operation. I threw this photo in because my wife hates having her photo in public. So she unfortunately saw me reviewing the slides and like, take that photo out of there. And I was like, sorry about that. Our club call letters are WADYY for the repeaters that we use. We go back to the heritage of the nuclear activity that Monsanto was doing in our club logo. You can come by just about any time that we're operating and see what goes on. Some of my favorite memories in life have been doing amateur radio activities. My dad and I spent Friday nights hunting hidden transmitters. One guy would go out, and it's guy because back then it was mostly males, would go out with a transmitter and just start talking, and then we had to find them. And so we'd go through and triangulate. They had to be somewhere in Montgomery County, and we'd find them. I had an internship in Rapid City, South Dakota. Okay, had my Drake TR4 manufactured in Miamisburg, Ohio, one of the best tube radios ever manufactured. I was in Rapid City every evening from about 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. just talking on the radio. Now, it's important to know South Dakota doesn't have the highest population, which means there are very, very few amateur radio operators in South Dakota. So for everybody in Ohio, New York, Florida trying to work all of the states, South Dakota was like the second most popular state because there just weren't that many people there to operate. Well, I had a little mobile mount antenna. I was on the second floor of an apartment building, had the antenna running down. And every evening, because I was operating on the bounce, at 6 o'clock, the ionosphere was a perfect bounce to New York City. And for an hour, I would work New York stations as fast as I could. They give me their call letters, a signal report. I give my call letters, a signal report. We sent postcards to each other to confirm the contact. And then for the next hour, it would drift over to central New York, Pennsylvania, and then it sort of petered out when I reached about Youngstown, and that's when I usually shut down the radio. But then if I got on early in the morning, I could hit California, then it'd be kind of dead, and if it was a Saturday or Sunday, I could do Alaska, and then about 3 or 4 hours later, Hawaii would come up on occasion. So that was an absolute ball. And one brief silly story, I was talking to a guy, I think it was in New York, and a guy broke into the conversation. It's kind of rude to break into a conversation, but you say break, and sometimes you do it. And, okay, yeah, go ahead, break. And he says, where are you? I said, well, I'm operating portable in South Dakota. Oh, okay. He says, my radio meter, that normally there's a scale from 1 to 9 for signal strength. And then if it's really strong, you get 10 dB over. And if it's really, really strong, you get 20 dB over. He says, I have a radio that never goes beyond 5.9. You're like 20 or 30 over. Where are you? I said, well, South Dakota, I'm in Rapid City. Oh, I'm in Rapid City too. Where are you in Rapid City? And he says, I'm at 5th and Montgomery. I was at 5th and Quincy. It was the same road, and the School of Mines had taken over a road, blocked it, and made a park. So my car was parked on this end of the park. His car was parked on the other because his kid was enrolling in the School of Mines, and he was just playing on the radio, killing time. Heard my signal, which, yeah, being 200 feet away, and I was putting 100 watts out, you're going to have a strong set. So it's silly stuff like that you can have a lot of fun with. We've traveled around the world. My mom and dad knew people in every country of the world. Every time they would take a cruise or go to some country, if the person there that had talked to my dad knew about it, it was always an invitation, come to my house for dinner. I want to show you my shack. And so they'd be pulled off these tours, and mom was like, I want to see the tour. And dad would go and look at somebody's shack, but they have lovely meals and conversations. And then ham radio operators around the world. My first contact internationally was with a guy in New Zealand. And he says, where are you? And I said, well, I'm close to Dayton, Ohio. He says, Dayton, Ohio, I've always wanted to go there. Dayton Hamvention. It was bringing in at the time 35,000. It still brings in about 25,000 people. It's sort of the mecca for ham radio operators around the world. You got to get to the hamvention at least once before you die. The major manufacturers would hold their radios and announce them at the hamvention, and you'd see $1,000 radios as fast as the salespeople could be passing them out. They were selling radios in the heyday. It was quite the thing. So then I go on and say, well, I'm not really in Dayton. I'm Miami Township and went to school in Miamisburg. He says, Miamisburg, I see that name every day. He was operating a Drake TR4, and it says RL Drake Company, Miamisburg O. So every day he was operating, he saw Miamisburg, Ohio. That was my first DX contact, international contact. All right, that's what I got for you. Bill.
Radio. Where's the ham come from? Nobody knows. It's lost the time. Okay. Yeah.
Do you still do the football games and that kind of stuff?
No, we couldn't. We were assisting with parking there, and then they started charging for parking and didn't want us. So okay, we quit doing that. Yeah, just
What does it take to join the Miamisburg Ham Radio Club?
just have to be an amateur radio license operator and have a $20 and you get voted in by the membership. Yeah, John.
Invite the guy from New Zealand over?
What's that?
Did you invite the guy from New Zealand
Oh, heck yeah. Well, no, honestly, I was 13 years old and terrified to be on the radio. It's kind of a brief conversation. But I still remember to this day, his call was ZL2 AMI. His name was Rick, and he was a TV engineer in Christchurch, New Zealand. And he did repeaters for TV stations because in New Zealand, so this was back 50 years ago, the TV station would have a large tower and could cover Christchurch. But New Zealand is very mountainous, so you've got another city, another city, another city. The TV station couldn't, their signal doesn't go through mountains. So he was building repeaters on the mountaintops to get TV to all the cities in New Zealand. So it's funny, things you remember from, that would have been 48 years ago, I think. I had that contact.
So Eric, are you the prepper's best friend? The people that, you know, are into end of days kind of things?
I would never speak to that because I don't want you to come to my house if I have some. Emergency communications is good preparation in all times.
I do have to say that I did solicit his assistance because I was like, my first 2 weeks here in Ohio when I moved here, there was a tornado that touched in Germantown and then flew over our house. I said, I went down to the basement because I heard the sirens, but then I wasn't sure what to do because, well, I'd never had that before because I'm from here. I'm used to earthquake drills in Seattle, not tornadoes in Ohio. So I said, hey, what frequency, what do I need? Like, what kind of a radio is good? He gave me a good recommendation for a radio. I tried it out, like I could actually work it. It worked, and it's great. So, yeah, I appreciate the help. Yes.
All right, Tom, that's what I've got for you today.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. All right. The yellow tickets. Prizes were given today by Ryan Davis. All right. Last three, 971, 971, and 969. 969. Who is it? Again? Two for very good. All right, and we'll see if everybody has memorized the four-way test. So everything we say, think, and do. Number one. Number two. Number three. And number four. Very good. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your week.